Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Lucas On podcast. Today, my guest is Andy Pulzar. Pulzar FM is very special to me. It was Christchurch's home of electronic and dance music, sadly shutting down earlier this year after 23 years of broadcasting. It has a really special place in my heart because it gave Alex and I the opportunity to get on the radio for the first time, to have Alex's music played, and for me to kind of have my first outing as an entertainer, as a presenter. It's kind of the first time that I used Lucas Devotion kind of publicly as my name, introduced myself to the world, if you will. The Pulzar 20th is where that was the first time I had my name on a poster for something music related. Lots of really exciting opportunities came out of Pulzar FM, not just for me, not just for Alex, but for so many local musicians. It's such an important station for just giving people opportunities in the local scene that wouldn't normally have the chance, and that's why it's really special to me, and we're going to miss it a lot. But in this episode, talking to Andy Pulzar, the man himself, founder of Pulzar FM, we talk about kind of a lot of that. Why young artists and new artists and new presenters like myself, like Alex, kind of got their opportunity on Pulzar FM having no history. Why him and his company and his radio station kind of was willing to give people who had no experience, no background, an opportunity of a lifetime. So we talk a lot about that, especially his kind of right-hand man, Mike Nicholas, who's doing amazing things now, but also got his start on Pulzar FM. And I also kind of wanted to ask Andy about the nitty-gritty behind not only what happened to Pulzar FM, why they had to shut down, but also kind of the struggles and challenges of running a radio station, because it's no small feat to run a radio station, especially for 23 years. And so, it's just incredibly impressive and such an interesting conversation. Andy's a really good guy. I really appreciate him taking the time to talk to me, and of course, the opportunities that he afforded Alex and I when we were just starting out. So very bittersweet in a lot of ways, but I think you'll be able to tell by the end of this conversation, he's got so much energy, and he's only going to do greater and greater things as we go along. The Pulzar name, if you will, is still going strong. So I hope you enjoy this episode, and thank you. I've my questions all lined up. I did speak to Mike a little bit in advance, just nice. Because I
did he give you any? You need to ask him this. You need to ask him this.
I thought he might, but no, he was like surprisingly, he was surprisingly chill about it. I thought he might have like that undercover sauce that no one blow something wide open that no one knew about or something.
No, I think the nice thing that we did with Pulzar is operate very transparently. Yeah, it's the way I like to be. The moment you've got people playing secret squirrel stuff in the background and doing stuff beyond what you need to do commercially, which sometimes you obviously do need to. Yeah. It's not the way to be. As soon as we were able to tell people things, we told people things. Yeah. Whenever drama went down, people learned about it pretty damn quickly, because otherwise it festers and it creates issues, and especially when you're in a volunteer, predominantly volunteer-orientated organisation, which is what we were. People love to gossip. They love to, a few rumours do the rounds, and next thing you know, it's all just drama. And so it's easier to just go, no, guys, look, this is what happened. Yeah. I'm not going to go into deep detail. If you want to know what that is, you can come to me one-on-one. But this is kind of what occurred. Don't spread any rumours, because there is no more story than that. Yeah. It's a funny thing.
What do you think that is, like that? Because I've kind of seen that in like my experience, I guess, of the world so far as well, that things are kind of like, that are non-profit or like volunteer based tend to be more kind of drama filled, and there's a bit more gossip going on.
Or politics.
Yeah.
Why do I think that? I think that is human nature. I think if you are being paid to do a job and you're turning up and you have expectations on you, you are more likely to curtail your behaviour and work to the paradigm that is expected of you.
Yeah.
If you are volunteering, you're giving of yourself, it could be anything. It could be the PTA.
Yeah.
It could be
that's a good example.
the soccer club. It could be the bowling club. Whatever you're doing, running a dance music festival that's going to be happening in a paddock somewhere.
Yeah.
When people are giving of their time, and the part of the reason why they're doing it is for a little bit of that personal satisfaction of doing something, but also it's the being thanked for doing something. It's getting some of that appreciation, feeling like you're valued, all that kind of thing.
Interesting.
And it's part of the challenge in running a volunteer-orientated organisation, because to do it well for a very long time, you have a lot of egos to manage. And there's always some people that are going to be the prima donna that want a little bit of additional love because they feel they're entitled to it for whatever reason. And you're sitting back in a lead role going, well, no, you're actually just the same as that person and that person and that person. And you might have been here 6 months longer, but really, dude, in the grand scheme of things, it's nothing. But you've just got to be careful. And people have egos. People like to feel valued. Sometimes people can get precious about things. And so it's learning what those things are. And I think to be a good leader of a volunteer organisation, you need to try and work out what are people's main motivations, what are they looking to get out of it, and try and fulfill those motivations for them. Like if your motivation is to get involved with a dance music radio station because you want to be doing gigs, or you want a festival slot, or you want to build a fan base or whatever, it's our job as the person that's working there to try and facilitate as much of that as we can so that you get that satisfaction. And I think we did that reasonably well. I know we fell flat probably a few times for a few people. I know other people went, oh, look, our needs will be better met at RDU. And it's like, cool, sweet, we 100% support them, we love them. If you feel you're better there, go be there. And we've had other people that have gone the other way. So it's one of those interesting things. You've got to find the organisation that matches with your values, matches with your objectives and vision, and that you feel you gel with. And
so people, they kind of came in expecting to get, a different kind of currency out of it, a different kind of benefit than, I suppose, just showing up to a job. And the exchange of value is, I do my time here, I get money. They're kind of looking for, whatever. Yeah, okay.
So and there will be intangibles that you get from doing those things. And it's like, I find it amazing when I think back, in that 23 years that we ran Pulzar, we had several people that were involved and volunteered and did a show every week for like 21 years. Which, when you think about that is a good chunk of your life. And you're turning up every week for 2 hours and doing a thing because you're passionate about it. You love the music, you love the audience, you love the vibe that you've created, the following you have. And it becomes part of your weekly routine, and it's something that you love. And so, what we wanted to try and do as long as we could was keep providing that for people. Because for some people, it was a key part of who they were.
Definitely.
I still remember when Jason very sadly passed away with cancer, and he'd been doing the Cold Cut show with James, and we were at his funeral, and a number of the people that were speaking there, his wife and other friends, were saying how much his radio show meant to him, how much of a part of him it was. And it's things like that give you a great deal of satisfaction in doing it and going through all the sacrifices that my business partner and I went through for all those years, and are now still going through, but that's a whole other story. To try and provide something, create something for the community, and just create that connection point for people. And that's part of the whole thing. Anywho.
Yeah, I mean, okay, well, yeah. When I look down at this book, I promise I'm not being rude or tuning out anything.
I just,
well, I've said kind of questions.
And
have a look. I don't like to spend too much time on these kind of covering like your personal history, because I feel like so much of it can be like found online, researched other places.
Just go to my website.
Yeah, I guess
my bio's there on Andy Pulzar.
What would you say if I kind of ask you to give your 60-second summary, like a quick rundown? Like, how did this even all start?
Oh, that's easy. So the elevator pitch for Pulzar was fairly simple. I had done radio in the 90s.
Yeah.
I'd had about 3 years off, and I just wanted to do something. I was in love with dance music. I just started as the resident DJ at the Loaded Hog. I was playing at bass and ministry as well. And I wanted to share my love of dance music and connect the community. Yeah. 1999, there was a massive surge of interest in dance music. And so for me, it was just something that I felt I could do. I had the right connections. I knew someone that could provide an automation suite that we could use. I had the IT skills because I owned an IT company. I hadn't even started at that point, but I've been in IT prior. And so I was able to put all the bits together, basically. And then the original plan had been I was going to set something up in my garage and put a transmitter on the roof. We lived in Chester Street East at the time in the CBD, so it would have given us a bit of coverage. And it was just going to be a fun hobby thing for me, just to share my love. And then my business partner, Jason, J-Boss as we know him now, I was sharing the idea with him over a coffee. And he was like, didn't they just do something like this in Auckland? Why don't we get serious about it? Because George had started like 4 or 5 months before this.
Wow, okay.
And I was like, well, I suppose we could. Do you think anyone, there's no radio frequencies. We don't know. And so we started talking to people, and I had a computer client that I was doing some work for that owned Manchester Courts that said, hey, look, I'll give you a suite in Manchester Courts. We'll give you a free rent for the first few months, and 7 stories high. You can put an aerial on the roof. And that's how it all came about. And suddenly we just had this whole crew of people that were passionate about doing what we wanted to do that all signed on. And the great thing is a whole pile of them are still mates of mine today, which I love. And so that was the birth of it. That was the genesis. And then we just found people started flocking to it. Yeah. And 23 years later, we were like, oh, wow, we did 23 years. That's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Do you think I have no evidence for this whatsoever, but what is the link between like IT dudes who love putting together computers and shit like that, fucking JavaScript, and like electronic music, dance music? Because that's something I see over and over again, and I've never been able to put it together.
You're not wrong. It's a really valid point.
Yeah.
And I think there is definitely a crossover there. And electronic music, electronic components, I don't know. Maybe it's just the way our brains work. Maybe our brains like the patterns.
Right.
There's a lot of consistent patterns in the way that electronic music's written, and there's pattern and design and structure within what we do within technology. I've always, throughout my entire career, I've had a technology bent in almost everything I've done, but parallel with that, I've had a music bent as well. So it's like my CV, my LinkedIn reads really bizarrely because he's doing a music thing or a radio thing, and then he's doing an IT thing, and then he's doing a recruitment and IT thing, and then he's doing another radio thing, and then DJing, and it gets amusing. I don't know. Maybe it's just the way our brains work.
What is it? How has that balance been for you? Because I feel like, if you're doing IT, you're like, sounds like you're managing a company. You're like, you're dealing with all these kind of what I would call potentially daytime activities. But then, boom, 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 we see you out at night. You're still hitting the decks till 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, right?
Oh, not 4 so much anymore. It was back in the day. An earthquake.
How's it balanced? Like, are you sleeping?
A lot of my friends mention things like that. They laugh. Steve Arnold, every time we catch up, he's like, dude, I don't know how you do it. Like, he's not quite as old as me, but he's like, what the heck, how are you still doing it? And it's just like, I've been doing it for so long, I don't know anything else.
Yeah.
I've been DJing since I was 15. My first professional gig, I was just turned 16 from memory. And so, at 54 now, what's that? 38 years, 30, no, that can't be that much. My math is just not good at this time of the day.
No, you're okay.
But 30-something years.
Yeah.
It's just what I've been doing. It's real funny. A little amusing anecdote. In 1998, I'd been doing mobile DJing since I was 16. Formed a mobile DJ company with one of my best mates. And we were doing lots of gigs. We're doing 40-something gigs a year generally, weddings and formals and corporate gigs and stuff. And I got offered a residency at the Palladium nightclub in the early 90s, and I turned it down because the money was crap. And I would have been working 10 hours a night with a couple of band sets in the middle.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm making 3 times that doing, Joe's 21st.
Yeah.
Why would I bother?
No, yeah.
So I turned that down. And then by 98, I kind of got the bug to get really properly into a club. I'd been doing corporates for just so long, private functions, so I could play the same set every night and everyone loved it, and I was just over it.
Yeah.
And I was walking into town, and I would walk past this building that they were refitting to be a venue, and I was looking in the window one night and looking up at this DJ booth that was almost like the shining the light on it, massive dance floor in front of it, and I was like, it's pretty cool. Maybe I should have a word to them. And I went in the night after they opened. So they'd opened on the Thursday with a private function. The Friday night was their first commercial night open. I went in after work and I sat at the back of the dance floor for about 2.5 hours, just watched, see what was going on, listen to what the DJ was playing. And I went over to the bar and said, "Oh, look, is the manager here?" And the manager came over and went, "Oh, yeah, what do you want here?" So just curious, I'm a DJ, I've got a bit of experience. Just curious to know, are you happy with the DJ you've got on? And he said, "Well, we're not completely happy. Bit busy at the moment. Could you come back Monday? We'll have a chat." Yeah, sweet. So I went back Monday, had a chat to John, and he said, "Oh, do you want to come in tomorrow night and have a play at 10 o'clock when we're ready to close?" I'm like, "Sweet, yeah, Tuesday night, 10 o'clock, that's fine." So went in at Tuesday night, 10 o'clock, had a quick play on the gear. And then we ended up sitting drinking at the bar till 3 o'clock in the morning. I had work at 9, or 8:30 probably. And they offered me the residency, and it was like, sweet, cool. So this was the Loaded Hog, and I had coffee with my business partner. Again, he wasn't my business partner, he was just my mate who'd been the lighting guy at the Palladium. And I said to him, "Hey, look, I've been offered this residency at the Loaded Hog." And he said, "Oh, look, mate, hospitality's so incredibly fickle. Just, no, don't quit your day job. You'll be lucky if you last 3 months. Someone else is going to come in and do exactly what you did."
Right.
I was a resident DJ there 3 nights a week for 6 years.
6 years.
And the only reason I left is because I got headhunted to go down to Azure and rebuild Azure on the terrace. And then I spent 6 years there. Yeah. Doing a year and a half at Azure, and then we did 6 weeks refit, and then we reopened as Liquidity, and I played there for another 4.5 years.
Wow.
So I find it amusing that my business partner didn't have the confidence in my abilities. And now we've been business partners for 24 years. So yeah, it's kind of amusing. But I find that so funny that, the perception is this is a risky thing to do. You're not going to cope long in that. But I just got in there and I did it, and my body clock adjusted, and I was able to work a day job and DJ 3 nights a week. I cut back my hours a little bit towards the end, especially after we started the station. But yeah, it worked. And then I had long periods in there where I was technically self-employed or running my own company. So I had the flexibility to do things that fitted my needs. So we had an IT company called Pulzar IT that was operating out of the same offices as Pulzar FM. Yeah. And it meant that, we had 5 staff that were working for the IT company and were being paid doing IT work. And at the same time, half of that crew were also people that were passionate about the radio. So Sebastian Wild and Paul, our sales guy, and Warren, massive dance head, who's now working for Universal Studios in London. So we would sort of look after the radio stuff and cover that out of the money we were doing with Pulsar IT. So it just kept it alive.
Yeah.
Passion project.
Yeah, but it seems like you kind of built, you whether purposeful or accidentally, you kind of built like a good system for it to sustain itself. Based on
100%.
Yeah.
And look, I think the key thing in any volunteer organisation is finding the right people that are passionate about what you're doing and aligning yourself with them and making sure, as we've been talking about earlier, making sure they have what they need to do to feel fulfilled in what they're doing.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, like, there were times in the early 2000s when, we had 30, 40 people on the team, pretty much all of whom were volunteer.
Yeah.
And just we came together and did things because we loved it. We were doing gigs all the time. We were in a record store for a while. A couple of friends of mine had a clothing store that were in that building as well. So we had Kistar Clothing, we had Pulzar Records, we had Pulzar FM, all up in the same complex, same office suite. And it just worked. It was great. It was tremendous fun and some great people that organised events and did different things. And we'd have somebody that got passionate about something. We had one instance I remember really vividly was Wendy from the Civic, later the Bedford, came to us and said, "Oh look, hey, we've just had a cancellation on Saturday in 2 weeks' time. Do you guys want to use the venue for the night? I'll give it to you for free if you want to throw something because, we'll take the bar."
Yeah.
And so we put on, so I had Jody, one of our team at the time, who's gone on to become quite a successful entrepreneur in Auckland, come to us and go, "Hey, I want to do a $2 party." And so she went off and she got Print Stop, I think it was, to sponsor these flyers that we dished out around town that said, "Hey, Pulzar FM $2 party," and it had a Print Stop ad on the back of it, so we didn't have to pay anything for it. And we got all these people that turned up and paid $2, and we had like 2 zones and like DJs playing all night, and we packed the place with over 300 people with a week and a half or 2 weeks of promotion.
Wow.
And at that point, we were CBD only, like 1.5, 2 kilometres of coverage.
Yeah.
And so to being able to do that sort of thing and do it so successfully just blew my mind. And, I had none of the ability to do that myself. It was only because we had good people that were keen to get on board and get stuck in and just do something really fun. And we had that happen lots over the years. Yeah.
That's so. Yeah. I mean, how did those kind of connections like work and formulate for you? Because at this point you're obviously a very well connected guy. You're telling these stories about how you knew someone and someone helped you out here, and the case of you walking up to the manager and making good friends with him, and then that turning into a residency. What are you thinking about in moments like that? How do you kind of think about and maintain those kind of relationships?
I probably don't really think think about it that much. I think there are just some people that are naturally good networkers.
Sure.
And I think early 2000s I was part of a business networking breakfast group called BNI, Business Networking International. We used to do a weekly breakfast at the Christchurch club.
I think they still do that.
They do. Yeah, it's still a thing.
Yeah.
And when I was running Pulzar OT, so we used to attend that, and we got a number of connections and clients out of it. And it's just a case of working out, okay, if someone's, I think it comes back to what we were talking about before about identifying somebody's passions.
Yeah.
If you are chatting to someone and they're talking to you about something and they're just fizzing about it, they're just like, oh, I was doing this and this and this, or I was at this thing, and oh man, I'd love to try something like that. And you can find a way that you could go, well, actually, we could help you with that. That's what everyone in life wants. They want people to help them. They want people to help them on their journey and fulfill their visions. And if you can do that, if you can be an enabler, you can very quickly get a very, very good reputation in the scene for being a person that's there for others. And it's one of the things that part of the reason why the whole radio station existed was to provide a connection point, a community space for people that were into the same stuff that I was into. People that were at base or ministry or wherever every weekend. And it's grown over the last just 20 years, which is pretty incredible. The scene was so big back in that sort of late 90s, early 2000s period. Gathering and Alpine Unity and Unity and all these other massive events. Rhythm and Vines kicked off around then. All those sorts of things just became cultural points in our years. And now it's, Electric Avenue, it's Rolling Meadows, it's Hidden Lakes, it's all those sorts of things. And so there's still that presence, and in some ways it's become a bit more commercial now. Back then it was probably a bit more niche and underground. But we had loads of people around that just were keen to do things, and there was just this real energy and enthusiasm. And I think it's part of being in your 20s too,
Sure.
I think when you're in your 20s, you've got time to experiment and play and try things and work out, who am I and what's my jam, what am I into?
Yeah.
And if you can find an environment within which that's encouraged and you can stretch yourself, hey, all the better.
Yeah. So I talked to Mike briefly. Yep. Mike Nicholas, famous DJ.
Funny though, he is a famous DJ now. But you know how did he tell you how he started DJing?
No.
He started DJing because we were doing I think it was the Pulzar FM. Was it the Warehouse? No, it was the Waitangi Day rave.
Yeah. That
we did the Waitangi Eve rave that we did at Chic nightclub, and we decided to surprise Mike by doing we're going to get someone to do a guest DJ set. Oh, yeah. And we got a whole pile of audience people to kind of to put entries in.
Yeah.
And then we dropped it on Mike live in the studio. Okay, so guest DJ for the night is you. And so he had to put together this 10-minute set.
Yeah.
And play that. And he actually ended up playing for about 20 minutes in the end. But that was the first time he DJ'd for a crowd.
Wow.
Was
Straight
at one of our
it.
gigs.
Yeah.
And it's been so amazing seeing how he's blossomed over the last, probably 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah.
And is just smashing it at every gig he plays. He's so well connected now. He's, he's picked up the networking. He's worked out who's who. He's, aligned himself with a whole pile of interesting people. And now, of course, with Damage Control, they're doing the duo thing, which is just brilliant. So, so impressed with them. Anyway.
Well, I mean, that kind of links into my question a little bit. This is a kind of a direct quote from him. He said that you've spent the last 23 years giving people opportunities and experience in the industry, something that's really hard to come by in radio. What about that is, and thinking about it, I actually have a great prop for this. Sorry, audience. I have a great. We'll put it up in the background. I have this sitting right here. Coincidentally, look at that.
Oh, so
that's a poster. That's a poster for the 20th anniversary party.
Yeah, I have a version of that with a whole pile of signatures on it.
Very nice.
I have sitting in my garage and need to get laminated and put it up. It's probably going to go up above the decks in my living room.
Yeah.
Because I actually have decks back in my living room now. Well, I will do when I set them up. But yeah, look, there's you right
and
there.
I am. Yeah, first time on a poster.
So, awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the question. Why is this idea of giving people opportunities?
Because I think people always rise to do their best when they're given the chance to.
Yeah.
100%. Mike, how I came across Mike was really funny. So Mike had just finished radio school. He was 18, really young, really just passionate about radio.
Yeah.
And he was asking in the New Zealand Radios group, does anyone in Christchurch have any connections to give him any experience in the industry? And he'd been doing some shifts on Radio Redwood and some other sort of low power kind of things. And at this point, I'd just moved back from Sydney. I spent 4 years in Sydney after the earthquakes. So I just moved home. I was doing the breakfast show and had been doing it since we relaunched in 2012. And when you do breakfast radio for an extended period of time, it can be quite draining, even if you're being naughty like I was and pre-recording it.
Right.
Don't tell anyone, that's a secret. And so, this young guy posts this and I'm like, okay, well, what are you into? And so I had a chat to him on Facebook and I said, look, why don't you come in and we'll just have a coffee and we'll have a chat.
Yeah.
And he got in and I was like, where do you want to take your career? What's your dreams? What's your passions? And I could just see this guy was just all enthusiasm for radio. He just wanted that opportunity, and I liked how he sounded. He had a good voice.
Yeah.
He was young. He connected us with the youth market. I was really conscious that I was not young. And I was once upon a time, but not anymore. And I was feeling that I was becoming more and more irrelevant to our audience because our audience very much is that 18 to 35.
Yeah.
And I was well past 35 by this point. And so I was like, look, hey, if you're keen, I'm keen to give you an opportunity, but we're going to drop me in the deep end. Right. And it's what I've always loved. I think, coming back to what I was saying, so I think if you put people in a situation where it's kind of a make it or break it, maybe 8 times out of 10, I don't want to say 9 times out of 10, but 8 times out of 10, they succeed.
They make it,
and they do an amazing job and surprise themselves. Because I think we're all capable of so much more than what we ever realise. And until we're put in a situation where you have to stretch, you don't necessarily make the stretch. Like Mike and DJing, classic example. And so I'm always, every work experience person we've ever had come to Pulzar FM, we put them on the air on probably their first day.
Wow.
You go do work experience at the networks and you'll be out riding in a Black Thunder. You might be handing out some promo stuff. You might do maybe one on-air cross. We'd have them do a whole 4-hour show live on air. And they're only work experiencing for a week. But all their mates are tuning in. And you get to see that, you get some amazing people that really do rise and some people that absolutely poo themselves. And it's a great experience. If at the end of the week they go, wow, there's no way in heck I could ever do that again. It's like, cool, well, you gave it a go. You gave it your best. But every now and then you find somebody that is just head and shoulders above anything that you could have ever imagined. And Mike is a classic example of that. He just smashed it out of the park. We did have a few chats along the 7 years that he worked for me.
Of course.
Where quality might have dropped off a little bit. Acknowledge that. Need a little bit of kick up the arse. But for a young guy that turned up to work every day at 6 o'clock in the morning and worked till 10, and generally did it unsupervised because I was off working another job at the same time. So he was having to self-manage himself, self-motivate himself, do all of his show prep, the whole bit. He did an amazing job and helped rebuild the station to what it was over the last few years. So, if it hadn't been for Mike and Sean and the rest of the team, there was no way it would have been that. That kind of thing. So, he's just a fantastic guy. And I'm a firm believer in, if someone, I'm a great fan of, oh, you've got an interest. You're interested in doing something? Cool, let's have a coffee and let's have a chat. Let me find out what your passions are. Let me see what we can do to create something that lets you do something in that passion area. Megan was a classic example. It's funny, people will say, oh, Megan's Sean's partner, and so that's why she got opportunities.
I see.
She got opportunities because her and I caught up for a coffee when they weren't even going out.
Right.
But not long after she'd gone along to the NDC gig at the stadium, the arena with Mike, and I'd met her there, and then we caught up for a coffee because she said, look, I'm passionate about music, I want to know what I should do. And I was like, well, great, let's put together a show for you and do that. And she sounded great on air, and she had passion, and she was doing prep and bringing some interesting elements in, and it was like, let's explore that, let's develop that further. And when you can see that, when you can encourage that, it's just something that sometimes you just gravitate towards it. It's just like, let's work with that.
So, Pulzar, such a community, good opportunity, and looking, just doing some kind of research before the show, seeing the Reddit post. There was a Reddit post talking about how you guys announced that the station was closing, seeing kind of the outpour of people being like, "This is such a shame, sucks. I've been listening for years, etc., etc." I guess why did Pulzar FM come to an end?
It was a big story. So, if the short version of the story is, we've been trading at a loss for years. And there is only so long you can keep doing that. The longer version of that story is, we'd partnered with NZME for a period, and that had not gone as we'd expected and hoped it would.
Interesting.
I'd spent a lot of time negotiating that deal, and they gave us a good studio, they gave us a technical support, but they didn't deliver on any other kind of things that we were really looking to get out of the relationship.
Right.
And I suspect that, like, from our point of view, our main sort of supporter that was heavily involved with NZME, that did all the agreement with us and did all the negotiation with us, left about a month after the agreement was signed.
Right.
And so suddenly we were left with no advocate inside senior leadership. I think that created a bit of an issue for us.
Yeah.
Because they didn't really know what to do with us. We were this weird black sheep cousin kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so they had us, but they didn't have us. And so, interestingly, it kind of stumbled along for a few years, and we all agreed that there was value in what we were doing, but it wasn't delivering to either of our expectations.
Right.
And so when they moved into their new premises in the city, we found out about a year and a half before they moved, that they hadn't planned a studio for us. So we knew we were getting the boot. And so it was like, okay, well, we've now got to find the money to build a new studio and go back on our own and do our own thing again. And then we'd started talking to MediaWorks, because I've got some good friends at MediaWorks, and they'd said to us, hey, look, we've got a studio, it's not being used all the time, you guys could jump in there. And so we started thinking about looking at doing a partnership arrangement with them, and it was looking good. And then of course, what happened, Today FM closed, Frequency became available, and they went, well, we're going to roll out George now. And so the moment that we got wind, and they were really nice, they did let us know in advance that it was going to happen. And it was like, okay, we need to do some serious soul searching, because what it had, we'd had a sales rep on the books for a year and a half before we called it quits. She was great. She was really passionate about what she did, and she did her best. But through COVID, through just really tight economic environment to be trying to sell radio advertising in, she struggled. And I worked out, that day that we found out and got the news and had this big meeting, and Jay Boss and I were just chatting and going, what do we do here? And we did the math, and I was like, hang about, we've actually paid her more than she's brought in. That's not how sales is supposed to work.
No, yeah.
So we crunched the numbers, and just there was no way that we could see to make it work in the way it needed to work to fulfill our obligations to keep the frequency as much as anything. One of the requirements of the frequency is you've got to have breakfast announcer, drive announcer, you've got to be live from studio for X number of hours per day. So there's all these different requirements that we had to meet, and to enable us to be able to do that, we needed to pay people, we needed money coming in. And there was quite a number of months where we were having to top things up just to make sure that salaries were being paid, and people were actually being honoured for the time that they were spending coming in. And so we were like, well, what's the plan? What are our options? And we had to weigh it up. Setting up a studio, getting all the equipment again that we'd previously had, but it was just not, a couple of them, the Marty link had broken, and the processor needed replacing, and it was not financially viable for us to do that. I didn't have $40,000 sitting in my back pocket. My business partner didn't have $40,000 sitting in his back pocket. And so it was like, well, do we just call it quits and just fade off gracefully into the night, or do we try and do something else? And that's where, when we'd been able to purchase the 100.9 frequency in 2020, we were able to remain on the 93.3 frequency that we had been borrowing from NZME, which was great. And so we launched a new format after we moved Pulzar onto 100.9, which was our Anthems format. So it was me going, hey, I want to be relevant again and get back on the radio. And the sensible way to do that was to do it through a classics throwback format. And so that's what we did, and that went quite well for a couple of years. But we had some frustrations along the line there as well. And then once we moved out of NZME, we lost that frequency. So we had this format sitting in our back pocket that what we were seeing is our audience figures were dropping. The main audience of Pulzar that we were targeting had moved very much to podcasts and Spotify and more diversified listening options, which meant that it was harder and harder to make a radio station format fly for that audience.
Yeah.
But the 30-year-olds are still listening to the radio in their car.
Interesting, yeah.
They're still listening to it in the panel beating studios and workshops and all those sorts of things. And so that's where we went, okay, well, look, is there something we could do here? And that just made sense for us to give a crack at doing that. So that's what we've done, but it's really different to what we were doing with Pulzar.
Yeah.
It's a very different vibe. It doesn't have the community element, which I really miss.
Yeah.
It's been a really strange year because of that. But we got our survey results today for our first survey that we've been included in.
Okay.
Got 1.1% of the Christchurch listening audience listening to us.
Wow.
We have the same audience share as Flavour.
Wow, okay.
And we've got the second longest time spent listening of any station in the Christchurch market. The only station that's better than us is News Talk ZB by 1 minute.
Wow.
And we're at 15 minutes time spent listening for our average for all people 10 plus. News Talk's at 16 point something. Everyone else is down in the single digits.
Well, and I suppose that makes you number one music based, right? Because News Talk.
Yeah, let's go with that.
right.
Yeah, I'll go like that. Yeah, let's go with that. So, we're 6 months into the journey now, and we're starting to see, taking some of those principles we learned from Pulzar, less advertising, a lot of just really good music played back to back, not lots of good energy, and just tried to make that fly. And it seems to be working. Watch the space.
Where does that leave you thinking when it comes to, the state of radio? I got a new car recently. I haven't had the chance to hook it up to my phone, so I've been listening to the radio a lot, and sometimes I'm driving around and I'm listening to it, and it just, so much of it, at least in my personal opinion, feels kind of creatively bankrupt. I'm
100% going to agree with you. Yep. Because most of radio in this day and age is trying to cater to a lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
They're trying to appeal to the casual listener. And it's a big difference to what we used to do with Pulzar. So with Pulzar, it was real community focused. I don't think there's a lot of stations that are really doing that. You get a little bit with the drive shows and the breakfast shows that are trying to create a little bit of community, but often it feels forced.
It does, yeah.
And I think it's something that I think radio is in a tough time at the moment, because I don't think we've got anywhere near the number of people. I remember in the 90s when I was flatting and you would come home and I'd just sit in my room with my radio playing.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it'll be Spotify, it'll be podcasts, it'll be whatever, Mixcloud or whatever that you're into listening to that you'll be streaming. And it will be funneling through that, playing you back the same music that you want to hear kind of thing.
Yeah.
So everyone's in their own little echo chamber.
Yeah.
Which is great if you really love one particular style of music that's got one particular feel to it. Yeah, that's all good. But I think with radio that's done well, one of the things that we loved with Pulzar, and I had to laugh actually, the chief financial controller from NZME made the comment when we first started looking at doing the deal with them. He was like, I couldn't understand, I think was what he said, how you could have a drum and bass track next to a house track, next to a hard dance track, next to a dub track, and actually see how they flow. Yeah. To my mind, it didn't work.
Right.
Then I listened to you guys and I learned that it did.
Right.
And I was like, that's the kind of thing that we wanted people to discover, that they could, you might like your tropical house, but here's an awesome drum and bass track that you're going to go nuts to.
Yeah.
But you won't discover that unless someone's exposing you to it. And I think what we're seeing a lot in radio at the moment, and it's something that I think the networks are a little bit guilty of, is being very repetitive, very small playlists. You'll often hear similar things multiple times in a day.
Yeah.
Because they're expecting people, coming back to that time spent listening that I was talking about before, they're expecting people to be listening for 7 minutes.
Yeah.
They're not thinking about somebody that's listening for 20 or 30 minutes. Like with Pulzar, when we were doing survey, when we could afford to, we had TSLs sometimes that were into the 30 minutes.
Wow.
Which for people, as an average, for our average audience member to be listening to us for half an hour at a time was almost unheard of in the industry.
Yeah.
And I remember we had a number of sales decks over the years where we'd be toting that and saying, hey, look, we don't have 100,000 people listening, but the people we've got listening are listening for way longer. So there's much more likelihood that they'll hear your ad.
Yeah.
And that was always a tough sell because so many advertisers just go off the top number.
Yeah.
It's funny. As of today, I know I have the 13th equal most popular radio station in Christchurch, which is weird.
Yeah.
But to know that I'm running a station that's rating the same as Flavour, that's just behind where George is, with 2 point something that I've got, and are way ahead of a whole pile of other stations.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, we're doing all right.
Yeah.
We need to make it commercially viable now because it's still not making us any money yet. And so, we're still having to sort of cover some of that additional cost. But it's been a journey.
I imagine it was quite emotional having to shut it down after 23 years.
Yeah. It was, It was really, like, that last broadcast. The last day was incredible. We had so many people that were there, and I love the fact, when I told the team, and everyone was sitting around the table, and it was like, okay, look, this is the cold hard facts, guys. And I was as transparent as I could be. I showed everyone, this is where our quarterly figures were. This is what we sold. This is what it cost us. As you can see, it's a negative number. That's not good.
It's red.
And so, we sort of talked that through and did a little bit of a group counselling session. But the other thing that we all agreed was, look, it's been 23 years. This isn't a failure.
No.
This is a celebration. And so I love the fact that, we spent that last 2 weeks just reminiscing, getting your old crew members to come back through. Yeah. The number of people that connected with me in that couple of weeks, some that we had on air, some that were just sending me messages, that just said, hey, look, I just wanted to let you know this meant so much to me in my life. That's the stuff that really touches you. Yeah. Having everyone in the studio for that last bit of that last broadcast, it was highly emotional. Yeah. When I got home, I think we stuck around. So we already went half an hour over time at least. We were really naughty. So we extended what we were supposed to. We were supposed to finish at midnight, but we went until about 12:35 or something. Yeah. Mike had to jimmy the clocks because they'd already set up the loop to start for the next thing, and it failed because we'd done something, and it was like, oh shit. Okay, but it was just a massive outpouring of support and love. Yeah. And it had meant so much to so many, and the hardest thing for me was doing things like, Mike was made redundant by it, which gutted me. Yeah. But in a way, he's now got a decent job and he's earning real money. So I'm happy for him in that regard. It's not fulfilling him as much. I caught up with him for lunch a couple of weeks ago and we were chatting about it. But, for him, it's probably good, hopefully. I hope. But yeah, it was... Yeah, getting home, I felt shattered. I climbed into my spa pool and I sort of looked up at the stars and I was just like trying to take it all in. Yeah. And for the next couple of weeks, I was probably feeling a bit shell-shocked. It's probably good that we'd already made the call to get straight into doing anthems because it kind of distracted me a little bit. And being a dad, I had my 2 kids that were kind of having to still do my dad responsibilities, kind of kept me out of getting seriously depressed and you didn't have too much time to sit and think about it. And I think that honestly that probably helped a lot. I think there was a few days in there where I'd said to my ex, hey look, you need to have the kids, I've got too much going on, I can't deal with it. And I got quite dark over that couple of days, and then once I got the kids back it was like, oh Dad, can you give me some food, and I had to kind of lift my spirits just to care for them and be there for them. And so it was pretty full on. But it's been interesting. It's been emotional. Yeah.
Do you take any kind of do you have a kind of twisted sense of comfort from the fact that, I suppose a lot of the circumstances around Pulzar FM closing down, are more to do with kind of this massive trend of like a decline in radio, as opposed to like the station not being popular, because it was popular, it had a community.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's more to do with kind of the economic environment.
Economic and situational.
Yeah.
Look, I don't know about twisted satisfaction. But yeah, look, I think anytime I get asked every week this question.
Yeah.
Like I go out for drinks with my work and there's someone sitting on the other side of the table who leans over and goes, Andy, just tell me, why did Pulzar close?
Yeah.
And I get it at the bars, I'll be DJing at Delilah or somewhere and someone will come up, oh man, I still love the station, why'd you have to close it down? And it's as we've repeatedly said, we've still got our little chat group with the leadership team, and every now and then like Camo will be going and doing gigs somewhere and someone's whinging at him or Mike or someone at them, and we'll share these little anecdotes, and it's like, isn't it just such a pity that for every passionate person we didn't have an advertiser that was prepared to support it and help it survive financially. And I think it was the biggest thing. There were a couple of people in the last couple of weeks that were like, oh, why don't you start a subscription model? And it's like, we tried it once before, briefly, before the earthquakes, and honestly, it's too hard. Yeah. And I don't, like, the thing that Jason and I really stuck to right through the whole 23 years was we don't want to ever charge people for the privilege of listening to us. Yeah. We never charged people to do a show. There are other stations that say, oh, you've got to pay $20 an hour to come in and use our studio and da-da-da-da-da. We never did that. Yeah. There were, Jason adamant, when we moved into NZME, they were like, oh, look, we've set up this text thing, so people will text you, and when they text you, they'll get charged 25 cents, and you'll get it straight to this computer. And we're like, well, we're not doing that. Yeah. And they went, why not? And we went, well, we've got this iPad here that we've set up that's completely free, and anyone that's got free texting, it doesn't cost them a penny. And they were like, and they couldn't quite fathom this idea that we didn't want to take money off our audience. Yeah. And so, it's one of those fun things. So we had people sort of pitching those sorts of things, and it was just like, nah, it didn't feel right. And the interesting thing is, this isn't the first time we've shut down. This is the third time we've shut down. So we shut down at the end of 2007. Okay. So we were on air from 99 to 2007. We'd probably talk about this now because what can they do? So we've been when we were on top of Manchester courts, we were legally allowed to broadcast with 1 watt of power, which is the LPFM limits. Yeah. But we had this little booster box that got us to 10 watts. Ooh. And we used to have to take it out every time because they had to give us 24 hours notice when they were going to come and inspect the equipment. Right. So we could pull it out, and they'd come up onto the roof and they'd go, oh, what's this area here that's in the transmitter box? And we're like, oh, yeah, we had a UPS in there that we were just using for additional power if we needed it. And we got away with it. But they got really, really strict as we went through that first 8 years. And at one point we moved the transmitter up to my friend's place at Huntsbury, where I'm actually heading at 8 o'clock. Yeah. And so we had it on his garage, so we had really good coverage out over the southern side of the city. The best place to listen to us right then was in the car park of Radio Spectrum Management. We learnt. Everywhere else in the city, not so much. Okay. And it got really hard, and they started getting really strict on us on power and making sure that we were genuinely putting out 1 watt. Right. And so by the time we were fully compliant, the audience was non-existent. Right. So we went, right, no, flag it. We'd been trying. At one point in about 2002, we had a VC had said, look, he had I think $2 or $3 million on hand for us. Oh, wow. If we could get a frequency that they would invest. We had a whole business plan and everything. Yeah. But there were no frequencies. We kept asking for a frequency, and nothing ever came up.
Who's in control of that? Because the
Radio Spectrum Management and the Minister of Broadcasting. Right. And so we'd been pitching concepts to Tim Barnett, who was our Central City MP at the time. And Tim was great. He was a really nice guy. He was very, very supportive of what we were doing.
Yeah.
We were big fans, even though I don't vote Labour. I was a big fan of him as a person.
Sure, yeah.
And he advocated for us. And so, once we got to that point of pulling the pin, it was like, we gave it a good go. It was 8 years.
Yeah.
And then 4 months later, we get an email from Radio Spectrum Management saying, guess what? We're doing a radio frequency auction. And not only that, we've got this new format and template that we're setting out. And we're like, that's what we pitched to Tim Barnett a year and a half ago. And it is the local commercial frequencies. So we had a month to reactivate all of our business plans, get all of our war chests together, so we actually had some money to buy a frequency with.
Yeah.
Fly to Wellington, bid in the auction, were successful, amazingly.
Wow.
Thought we were going to be millionaires. That didn't happen.
Oh.
And so then we launched in April 2009, Canterbury wide on 105.7, and it went really well. And then there was an earthquake.
There's the earthquake, yeah.
And so then we kind of struggled through the next few months, and I had a friend of mine, Alex, that was station manager for a bit there in 2011, and I'd had to move to Sydney for work, and Alex was like ringing me going, dude, look, this is just not working, you need to shut this thing down. And we're like, we don't want to shut it down, we love it. And he's like, it's not sustainable. And we're like, yeah, well, I still love it. And so we just kept on going for the sake of going. And then we actually were talking to Mainland Press that own Bicycle Exchange and the Star, and and they'd already bailed out CTV after the earthquake.
Right.
Because obviously everything really serious happened with CTV, with all the loss of life and everything, which was just tragic. And so they'd already done some amazing things there. So we started having some conversations with them, and towards the end of 2011 we thought, okay, well, makes sense, we're a radio station, they've got a newspaper and a TV station, let's form a group, and we'll move into their offices in Wairaki Road and create a three-headed media beast.
Yeah, media beast, yeah.
And amusingly, so we'd kind of almost run out of cash at that point, and during their due diligence period, my business partner got asked a question by their CFO or whatever he was. What will you do if this deal doesn't go through? And Jason, without thinking, because he's just an honest guy, said, well, we might just have to shut it down and liquidate. We'll just see how we go. And, of course, the finance guy went, well, hang about, if they liquidate, I can pick it up for 20 cents in the dollar.
Yeah.
And so they pulled out of the deal.
Wow.
And so the evening they pulled out of there, it was like Friday the 7th of December or something in 2011. And after they pulled out of the deal, we went, right, we've got to turn things off because we can't afford to keep trading. We thought we were going to have a deal. We thought this was going to be a go.
Yeah.
So that evening we flicked the switch and we went off air.
Wow.
And then we spent 6-8 months negotiating with our three main creditors, and reached settlement agreements with all three of them, and we relaunched in October 2012. So it's only been 3 times now that we've shut down.
Yeah.
Who knows? We might come back.
I like that. I like that. I see the hoodie, the Marvel hooding's fitting now, because I feel like that's a little, there's a post-credit teaser of
I've got that one there as well.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, see, that's a grand reveal.
That was actually completely coincidental. I just thought about that now.
We only have a little bit of time yet, because
Yep.
I know you have to shoot off. So I'll hit you with maybe just a couple more questions.
Yeah.
On the original Pulzar FM logo, just under Pulzar FM, it had music, life, pleasure.
That wasn't the original.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Logo, but it's the 2009 logo.
The 2009 logo. There we go.
Yep. Your
tell me,
music, your life, our pleasure.
I see.
Yeah, so it was our positioning statement. So we spent a lot of time trying to come up with a positioning statement that worked for what was going to be a more commercial brand.
Sure, right.
And so somehow, I think actually J-Boss came up with it, which was, your music, your life, our pleasure.
Pleasure, yeah.
And we're like, well, music, life, and pleasure, it's like, all the standard sort of eat, pray, love.
Exactly, yeah.
there's another one that I'm trying to think of off the top
Live,
of my
Laugh, Love.
Yeah, Live, Life, Love, and Sex, Drugs and Rock and Roll.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've often got those kind of three word kind of zingers.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what we went with. And that did us till... for a good chunk of time till we basically decided to throw away the positioning statement.
Right.
But yeah, we liked that one. That was quite good. And
it stood out to me as well. It does feel very, it feels very electronic music. It feels very festival. That's what I would think about going to a festival. I'm living, it's my, pleasure.
And look, peace, love, unity, respect. That plur is such a principle of the dance music culture.
Yeah.
That, we wanted something that kind of had a little bit of that kind of vibe to it, but still was kind of radio-y and a bit cool.
If that was your kind of mission statement around that time where you're potentially trying to make it a little bit more commercial, what would you say your mission statement kind of evolved into or was over the years from that to...
literally what it became was Christchurch's Home of Dance Music.
Christchurch's Home of Dance Music,
yeah. And so that's what we did. I don't know when Mike came up with that. Actually, who came up with that? It might have been Mike. It was probably Mike. He did most of the branding by then.
Yeah.
So it was probably, 2017 or thereabouts that we kind of evolved into that. Yeah, and it just, it was us putting our stamp on the fact that that's what we were. We knew that's what we were. We wanted to create that community, and it just made sense. So, so that's what we went with.
Maybe this is too big of a question for the time we have remaining, so feel free to say no or quick fire this. But do you feel like anything in kind of your music career or managing the station has made you a better parent, or vice versa, I suppose?
Better parent, probably. But I think that's just life.
Sure.
I think, having children when I was older probably helped that as well. I was more tolerant, more understanding, less likely to fly off the handle.
Yeah.
More willing to see both sides of things for my children. In some ways, I suppose you could say I've parented a lot of people over the years, even though I wasn't a parent.
Yeah.
Amusingly, at work, we had our interns start last week, and I worked for a tech company called Trimble as a recruiter there, and so we've got our biggest cohort ever of interns this summer. We're 26 interns.
Wow.
They all started last Monday, and I was like intern dad for the first couple of days.
Right.
Just getting them in and showing them around and teaching them the basics and listening to any questions they had and guiding them and this kind of thing. And it was really quite entertaining for me. It was like, I at one point in my life I thought about a career in education. I didn't pursue that, but here I was standing in front of a room in front of a class full of 25 students.
It's funny how that works. Yeah.
So is it dad or professor or what? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think the short answer is yes, I do, but purely because I think anything you do in life helps you prepare for parenting better. I think in life you're always learning. You're always taking things away from every situation that you're in. And I think anytime you've got to work with a volunteer workforce, sometimes people that don't necessarily do what you want them to do, and you've got to learn to negotiate with them and understand their fears and concerns and ambitions and goals and try and do what you can to meet those needs. I'd say you do the same thing as a parent.
Right. Yeah.
So short answer, I think so.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's a perfect segue to my final question. It's something I ask everyone who comes on the show. I guess as you said in the beginning, someone who's been on the other side of the table many times, what advice, feedback, criticism would you give me for future episodes of this show so that I can become a better, a more engaging, interviewer, whether it comes to question prep or presentation?
I think you're doing already bloody well.
Thank you.
All I'd say, just keep being you. Keep being energetic. Keep letting yourself shine through.
Yeah.
I think in everything in life, be as genuine as you can. And I think often people adjust themselves because of the expectations of whatever the group is that they're engaging with. So always be yourself, always be true to who you are and what your values are. I think that's really important. And just keep pursuing the passion. You know, it's one of those things that I think people pick up on passion and energy.
Right.
The moment that it looks like you're literally just dialing it in and doing the bare minimum,
I see.
people will tune out.
Yeah.
So they want to hear that passion come through. They want to hear that energy and that vibe, and they'll respond to that.
Yeah.
That's the way people are. People respond to passionate people. People respond to things that just feel good. You know, you look at the number of people that watch reality television, and a little bit of drama as well. People respond to drama.
Yeah.
But that's just human nature. Yeah. So I'd say just keep doing what you're doing.
Cool.
I think and just find good people to talk to and good topics to talk about.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the key. I love the fact that you're getting into some of the people motivation-y stuff and how things have affected them, as well as just talking about the story. It's really good.
Cool. Thank you. Well, do you have anything to shout out, plug, you know?
Not really. You know, sure, listen to Anthems if you feel like it, anthems.nz or 100.9 on your FM dial here in Christchurch, playing Christchurch's favourite throwbacks, and it's all the best of the 90s and the noughties. Other than that, I'm still DJing. Yeah, by all means, come along and see me play. You know, I don't play anything cool anymore. I don't play festivals anymore. But I still like playing. I still like rocking a crowd. It doesn't matter whether it's, you know, main stage at a festival playing for 15,000 people or playing for 200 people in a bar or 20 people in a bar for that matter. You can still have as much joy. So, just get behind it, support the scene. Go out and have a drink, Christchurch, and have a dance. Straight up.
The number of times I've walked into Delilah, you've been DJing away, and I'm just like, I hope I don't embarrass myself in front of Andy tonight. I gotta chill on the vodka Red Bulls. It's
all good. It's all good in the hood.
Oh, well, thank you for being on.
Hey, it's my pleasure.